Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new election series. You're going to be getting two different election series. Well, I don't want to say twice per week because of busyness, but this is the Reset Episode 1. This is an unrealistic series. It ignores all trends, demographic changes, all of that. Just don't take it too seriously. It's just for fun. And so we're going to be, and for this episode, we're going to be discussing the last 2 months of 2024. We now have the final approval ratings for the ticket nominees for the Republican, Democrat, and the major third-party independent. First up, the Republican nominee, former UK ambassador Jamie McCourt, has a positive 81% approval from the GOP. These are the numbers that an average GOP politician get. No surprise here. For Democrats, again, she has average numbers. She has the average numbers for a Republican, a 90% disapproval. And for third parties, this is what could tank her campaign. She has a 5% disapproval among third-party voters. This gives her, ironically, a 5% disapproval overall. Going on to her running mate, the former Chief Justice now of the Supreme Court, John Roberts. Republicans have blocked any nomination by Joe Biden to replace him as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. So hope in hopes that Jamie McCourt ends up winning so they can replace John Roberts with a Republican. John Roberts has a 70% approval from the GOP. These are actually below average for a normal Republican, which may or may not be bad news. For Democrats, he has a 77% disapproval, which again is an above average support for a Republican, which may help Jamie McCourt in the long run. For third-party support, he has a +9 approval rating amongst third-party voters, which is really good. And this gives him a 1% approval overall. For the Democrats, they nominated New York Governor Kathy Hochul. She has a 92% disapproval amongst the GOP. Again, normal for a Republican. For the Democrats, she has a 93% approval amongst Democrats, which again is normal. However, for third-party support, she is neutral. She is a plus or minus 0% approval. And this gives her a total of a +1% support to overall. For her running mate, Georgia Governor Stacey Abrams, she has a 94% disapproval amongst the GOP, a 97% approval amongst Democrats, and a terrible 7% disapproval amongst third-party voters, giving her a total support of 1% disapproval. Now, the major third-party candidates, the major third-party ticket. First, we have former state senator of West Virginia, Richard Ojeda, who launched a third-party bid in January of 2024. He has a 62% disapproval from the GOP because of his past as a Democrat, many presume, and he has a 22% approval from Democrats. Again, this would normally be higher, but of course he is running as an independent, which many are predicting is going to hurt Kathy Hochul. And for third-party support, this may be due to him being a major third-party candidate. He has a 42% approval rating from third-party voters. This overall gives him a 2% disapproval amongst the country. Now we go to his running mate, Massachusetts billionaire Abigail Johnson. She has horrendous numbers all across the board. She has a 32% disapproval amongst the GOP, a 67% disapproval among Democrats. However, I think the only saving grace for her is that she has a 3% approval rating amongst third-party voters, which may or may not be because of Richard Ojeda. This gives her an overall negative 32% disapproval overall in the country, which is lower than that of former Speaker Nancy Pelosi and incumbent and the current Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell. It is now 7 p.m. and the following states have poll closings, and we can make a projection out of the state of Vermont. Richard Ojeda will be the projected winner in Vermont. Many people were expecting this, as many Bernie supporters were going out and voting for Richard Ojeda, who has been described as a progressive by many in the media. However, Georgia currently too close to call. This is unexpected. Richard Ojeda is currently leading. Polling had Jamie McCourt leading with 32% right now, but she's underperforming right now. Ojeda is overperforming by 8 points. He was only had 30% in the averages, but he's outperforming right now, which could be good news for his campaign. This is a mistake, but I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be Kentucky, but Jamie McCourt is currently leading in the state of Kentucky. Or, excuse me, I don't know what that was. But actually out of Kentucky, Richard Ojeda is currently leading right now with 35%. He had a 33% in the averages, so he is outperforming by 2 points, which isn't that much of a overperformance right now. But Jamie McCourt, which that says Kathy Hochul, just work with me. Jamie McCourt is actually underperforming greatly, as she actually had 40% in the averages. Out of South Carolina, too close to call. Richard Ojeda actually doing what the poll said he was going to do at 33%. However, Jamie McCourt and Kathy Hochul underperforming severely. Out of the state of Virginia, it is too close to call. Richard Ojeda outperforming by 5 points in the state of Virginia. Here's the current electoral map. Richard Ojeda, the only one with electoral votes, sitting at 3 electoral votes. This might be considered a hot take, but we might be in for one wild and strange night compared to the norm. This might be very different than what we're used to. We now have some Senate projections out of the Vermont Senate. David Zuckerman will be elected to his first full term in the Senate. Governor Phil Scott appointed him to fill the empty Senate seat left by Bernie Sanders after he sadly passed away in early 2023. However, David Zuckerman will go on to win his first full term into the Senate. Going on to the Virginia Senate race, Tim Kaine is the projected winner, going on to win re-election. In the Indiana Senate race, it is currently too close to call. Senator Mike Braun is currently leading as of right now. Here's the current Senate map right now. Republicans have 40 seats to Democrats 31. Both parties need 50 seats to obtain the majority, as well as the president, or 51 seats to obtain a majority right now. And right now, Democrats have the majority. Earlier I said Mitch McConnell was the majority leader. He's the minority leader. Chuck Schumer is still the majority leader, as the Senate is 50-50 currently. At the Indiana governor race, currently too close to call. Attorney General Curtis Hill is currently leading right now. Out of the Vermont governor race, Phil Scott will go on to win re-election by a massive landslide. It is now 7:30 p.m. We now have poll closings. We can make a call out of the state of West Virginia. Richard Ojeda will be the projected winner out of his home state. This was another expected call that Ojeda was going to make. Out of the state of North Carolina, look at this. Ojeda's outperforming the polling. He was only at 20% in the average. He's overperforming by 12 points. The polling was just awful this election cycle. Out of the state of Ohio, Richard Ojeda, look at this again. Once again, leading or overperforming by this time by around 8 percentage points. He was leading by 28. Wait a minute, that's not... Let's see, that's actually 6. No. Yes, that is actually... Yes, 6 percentage point overperformance by Richard Ojeda. This is an amazing overperformance by a third-party candidate, no less. We can now make a projection out of Indiana, however. Jamie McCourt will go on to win Indiana, which was expected by many pundits. But this was not expected. Richard Ojeda is the projected winner out of Kentucky, a gain for independents. This is great news for his campaign. However, Georgia is still too close to call. Ojeda's lead is narrowing as Kathy Hochul, with her running mate, who is from Georgia, Stacey Abrams, is possibly going to help her win the state. Out of South Carolina is currently too close to call. Ojeda's lead narrowing. Out of Virginia is currently too close to call. A dead heat between both Ojeda and Hochul. Here's the current electoral map. Currently, Richard Ojeda has a lead with 15 delegates. Jamie McCourt has 11, and Kathy Hochul has none as of right now, though is expected to change very soon. We now have some Senate calls. Evan Jenkins will flip the West Virginia Senate seat. This is a gain for Republicans, as Evan Jenkins will go on to succeed Joe Manchin, who did retire. Evan Jenkins will go on to win West Virginia in a landslide. The Indiana Senate race still too close to call, but look at this. Brad Ellsworth is now leading over Mike Braun. This was supposed to be a close election, but many pundits had it as a lean Republican. Brad Ellsworth could shock the world. Out of the Ohio Senate race, currently too close to call. Josh Mandel narrowly leading over Paul Hackett right now. And here's the current Senate map right now. Republicans have 41 seats to Democrats 31. It is anyone's ball game right now. Out of the West Virginia governor race, Bill Cole will be elected as the next governor, as Jim Justice is term limited right now, and Bill Cole will go on to serve as the next governor of West Virginia. At the Indiana governor race, it is currently too close to call. Again, look at this. Indiana must be going blue this year because Linda Lawson, the current Senate Minority Leader, is currently leading over Curtis Hill. This would be a huge upset if she were to win because Curtis Hill was expected to win by 10 points or more. Here's out of the North Carolina governor race, it is currently a dead tie between the two candidates, Attorney General Josh Stein and Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. This will be a very close election here tonight. It is now 8 p.m. We have a whole slew of states to call. Out of D.C., Kathy Hochul will win her first set of electoral votes, 3 electoral votes to Kathy Hochul. And we have some calls for Ojeda as he will go on to win Maine's 2nd congressional district, another call that was expected to go for Ojeda, which is good news for his campaign as he is expected to win by around 12 points in the state of Maine, or Maine's 2nd congressional district, as Maine loves independent thinkers. He will also win the state of New Hampshire. Look at this, outperforming all expectations. He was supposed to come into a very, very close second to Kathy Hochul, but he's expected to win by over 10 points now. Holy crap. Out of Pennsylvania, Richard Ojeda will go on to win this state. Wow, we are having a huge underperformance of Democrats and Republicans here tonight, and I don't know how to explain it. Alabama is currently too close to call. Richard Ojeda has a 5-point lead over Jamie McCourt right now. Out of Connecticut, Ojeda has actually it's a dead heat between Ojeda and Hochul right now in Connecticut. Oh boy. Out of Delaware, currently too close to call. Kathy Hochul leading in the incumbent president's home state. This is President Biden's home state. She is currently leading over Richard Ojeda. Out of Florida, too close to call. Richard Ojeda leading over Jamie McCourt in the state. Out of Illinois, too close to call. Richard Ojeda leading over Kathy Hochul by around 3 percentage points. And out of Maine, too close to call. Richard Ojeda leading by around 7 percentage points. Maine's 1st congressional district, too close to call. Ojeda surprisingly is leading by around 2 points. Out of Maryland, it is currently too close to call. A dead heat between Ojeda and Hochul as Jamie McCourt is far behind. Out of Massachusetts, it is currently too close to call. Richard Ojeda and Kathy Hochul, a dead heat right now. Out of Mississippi, too close to call. Richard Ojeda leading over Jamie McCourt. Out of Missouri, it is currently too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a narrow lead over the competition. New Jersey, too close to call. Richard Ojeda has a lead over Kathy Hochul and company. Out of Oklahoma, too close to call. Jamie McCourt leading over Richard Ojeda and company. Rhode Island, too close to call. Richard Ojeda is leading over Kathy Hochul and company. Out of Tennessee, it is currently too close to call. Richard Ojeda is having a 2-point lead right now. We can now make some calls out of some previous states that were too close earlier, as Richard Ojeda will be the projected winner in North Carolina. A huge overperformance of Richard Ojeda in every state so far. This is amazing news for his campaign. And the same thing could be said about Ohio. Richard Ojeda will go on to win Ohio's electoral votes. Out of the state of Georgia, still too close to call. Ojeda still has that narrow lead. And out of South Carolina, Ojeda still with the lead. Virginia, too close to call. Ojeda leading. Here's the current electoral map. Richard Ojeda leads with 72 electoral votes. At this point, I'm predicting a contested election at the end of this. I don't see any of the candidates winning a majority right now. We now have some Senate calls out of Indiana. Brad Ellsworth will shock the world, flipping Indiana's Senate seat from red to blue. He will go on to the Senate as the first Democrat senator from Indiana since 2018. Joe Donnelly was the last Democrat senator, and he will go on to shock the world. It is interesting to see if he'll be conservative, a blue dog Democrat, to say, in the Senate. Out of Maryland, Chelsea Manning will replace the retiring Senator Ben Cardin, and she will replace him to go to the Senate. Out of the Connecticut Senate race, that says President, it's supposed to be Senate. It is currently too close to call. This is supposed to be a close election, as Gretchen Carlson has spent a lot of money getting the vote out here tonight. Chris Murphy has a 3-point lead over her. At the Delaware Senate race, too close to call. Lisa Rochester, Congresswoman Lisa Rochester, is currently leading over the only statewide elected Republican, Ken Sempler, who is the treasurer of Delaware. Out of the Florida Senate race, Randolph Bracey, the Democrats have nominated him, but he is currently falling behind the incumbent Senator Rick Scott right now. Out of the Maine Senate race, it is currently too close to call. Cynthia Deal leading over Richard Bennett. Out of the Massachusetts Senate race, it is currently too close to call. Tom Conroy is leading over John Kingston III. Out of the Mississippi Senate race, too close to call. Chris McDaniel is leading over Omeria Scott right now. The Missouri Senate race, too close to call. Josh Hawley leading over Scott Sifton. Out of the New Jersey Senate race, too close to call. Josh Gottheimer is leading over Christie. Out of the Ohio Senate race, Paul Hackett is now leading over Josh Mandel. This is terrible news for Mandel. He better hope some vote dumps come in soon. Out of the Pennsylvania Senate race, too close to call. Bob Casey, the incumbent senator, is leading over Jim Christiana. Out of the Rhode Island Senate race, Sheldon Whitehouse is currently narrowly leading over Robert Nardo Lilo. Out of the Tennessee Senate race, it is currently too close to call. John Wolfe Jr. is trailing behind Stephen Fincher. This was Marsha Blackburn's seat, but she decided to retire this year. Here's the current Senate composition right now. Republicans have 41 seats to Democrats 33, and we have 12 states that are pending for a call. We now have some governor calls. A huge call out of Indiana's governor race. Linda Lawson makes a huge upset, defeating Curtis Hill. She will become the next governor of Indiana. Congratulations to Linda Lawson. Out of the North Carolina governor race, currently too close to call. Mark Robinson has a narrow lead over Josh Stein. Out of the Delaware governor race, too close to call. Colin Bonini has a narrow lead over Matthew Dent, but of course this is coming from the Republican counties right now. We still haven't got anything from the Democrat counties yet. Out of the Missouri governor race, it is currently too close to call. Jason Kander leading over Mike Kehoe. This is bad news for Kehoe, as the early vote shows Jason Kander winning. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, too close to call. Governor Kelly Ayotte is currently leading over Dan Feltz, who is making a second attempt at the governorship 4 years after losing in a landslide 4 years earlier. It is now 8:30 p.m. and we have poll closings out of the state of Arkansas. As shockingly, it is too close to call. Jamie McCourt is leading by 3 points over the competition right now, but anything could change, I guess. We now have some calls for Ojeda, as he will go on to win the state of Alabama. We will expect him to gain the state of Maine, as well as the state of Mississippi. He is seems like he is so far sweeping the South. We can now make some calls for Jamie McCourt, as she will go on to win the state of Oklahoma. Ojeda will go on to win the state of South Carolina. Another flip for him. Connecticut, too close to call. Kathy Hochul leading by 1 percentage point. Out of Delaware, too close to call. Kathy Hochul narrowly leading. Out of Florida, too close to call. Ojeda has a 3-point lead right now. Out of Illinois, it is currently too close to call. Ojeda has a 4-point lead. Out of Maine's 1st Congressional District, Ojeda has a very narrow lead. Out of Maryland, too close to call. Ojeda has a very narrow lead right now. Out of Massachusetts presidential race, Kathy Hochul has a narrow lead right now. Out of Missouri, it is too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a 4-point lead as of right now. Out of New Jersey, too close to call. Ojeda has a 6-point lead still. That shouldn't be there. Out of Rhode Island, Ojeda has a 4-point lead, a 3-point lead right now. Out of the Tennessee race, it is currently too close to call. Ojeda has a narrow lead right now. Out of Georgia, too close to call. Ojeda is now leading by 2 points, which is bad news for the Hochul campaign. Out of Virginia, too close to call. Ojeda leading by around 2 points right now. And here's the current map so far. Richard Ojeda leads with 98 electoral votes, which is so far really good. A huge over performance from what the polling had him. Out of the main Senate race, we can now project that Cynthia Dill will technically flip the state from independent to Democrat, but she will go on to win the Senate seat going on to Senate in January. And out of the Ohio Senate, Paul Hackett will keep this seat blue, defeating Josh Mandel. Josh Mandel losing statewide yet again. Out of the Connecticut Senate race, too close to call. Gretchen Carlson is now leading. She could shock the world and flip this seat blue, which would shock the world. We've already had several shocking calls here tonight. And out of the Delaware Senate race, Lisa Rochester still leading over Ken Simpler. Still too close to call, mind you. Out of the Florida Senate race, it is a dead heat. Excuse me. A dead heat between the two candidates right now. Rick Scott has leading by around 2,000 to 3,000 votes. Out of the Mississippi Senate race, too close to call. Omeria Scott, again, she could shock the world and flip Mississippi Senate seat blue. This was Roger Wicker's Senate seat, but he decided to retire this year, which may be bad news, as it seems like it could flip. Out of the Missouri Senate race, too close to call. Josh Hawley still leading over Scott Sifton. Out of New Jersey Senate race, too close to call. A dead heat between the two candidates. Look at this. Christie is leading by less than 1,000 votes. This is a very close race right now. Out of Pennsylvania Senate seat, too close to call. Bob Casey Jr. currently leading over Jim Christiana. Out of the Rhode Island Senate race, it is a dead heat between the two candidates. Maybe White House's scandal in in late 2020 is finally coming back to bite him, as Robert Nardolillo is leading by around 300 to 400 votes right now. At the Tennessee Senate race, currently too close to call, Stephen Fincher still leading in this race. Here's the current Senate makeup. Republicans have 41 seats to Democrats 33 and 9 seats pending. Out of the North Carolina governor race, it is currently too close to call. It is a dead heat once again. Mark Robinson still narrowly leading. Out of the Delaware governor race, Matthew Dent has now picked up a lead over Colin Bonini, but not as big as one as he needed, obviously, as he's only leading by 1 percentage point. Out of the Missouri governor race, too close to call, Jason Kander still leading over Mike Kehoe. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, Kelly Ayotte still leading over Dan Feltz. It is now 9 p.m. and the following states have poll closings, as we can now project that North Dakota will go to Jamie McCourt, and she will also win the state of Wyoming. And we can now project that Kathy Hochul will win her state of New York. And we can project that Richard Ojeda will go on to win Nebraska's 3rd congressional district. Arizona, however, is too close to call. Ojeda currently has a narrow lead at the moment. Out of Colorado, Kathy Hochul has a 6-point lead there. Kansas, too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a 7-8-point lead out of Kansas. Louisiana is currently too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a narrow lead here so far. Out of the Michigan is currently too close to call. Ojeda has a 2-point lead. Out of Minnesota, too close to call. Kathy Hochul has a 6-point lead here. Out of Nebraska, too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a 4-point lead in the state. Nebraska's 1st congressional district, too close to call. Jamie McCourt leading by around 4 points. In Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, too close to call. Kathy Hochul leading by around 3 points. We can also say that New Mexico is too close to call, as Kathy Hochul is seemingly having a 2-point lead right now. Out of Texas is currently too close to call. Jamie McCourt has a huge lead at 7 points. Richard Ojeda spent some time here, but and he came in 2nd. He's actually doing what the polls said. The polls are saying he would be around 23%, and it looks like that's where he's at right now. Let's see if any more votes come in for Ojeda. For Wisconsin, it is currently too close to call. Ojeda has a 4-point lead here so far. We can now project that Richard Ojeda will win in the state of Florida. Richard Ojeda did really well in the populist panhandle, as well with Southern Cubans. This is what drove him to win the state. Shocking. He's going to win the state by around 2 percentage points, which is... I don't even know how to explain it. And out of the state of Illinois, Richard Ojeda will also flip this state. Big news for him. The Chicago turnout was historically low, however. Two very unpopular candidates in McCourt and Hochul. Now, the New Jersey, Richard Ojeda will pick off New Jersey, as well as the state of Virginia. He's sweeping the South right now. Out of Arkansas, too close to call, Jamie McCourt has a 5-point lead right now. Out of Connecticut, too close to call, Ojeda a narrow lead. Delaware, too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead. Maine's 1st congressional district, too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead. Maryland, too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead. Out of Massachusetts, it is currently too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead. Missouri, too close to call, McCourt has a 3-point lead in the state. Out of Rhode Island, it is too close to call, Ojeda has I'd say a 4 3-point lead in Rhode Island. Out of Tennessee, too close to call, Ojeda has a 2-point lead. Georgia, too close to call, Ojeda's lead has gone back down, but it is very narrow. And here is the current map thus far. Richard Ojeda, the only candidate to break 40 electoral votes, Richard Ojeda is, and he's also broken 100 electoral votes. This has to be a third-party wave this year, a massive third-party wave, all thanks to Richard Ojeda and Abigail Johnson's money. We can now make some calls. Big shock right here out of the Connecticut Senate race. Gretchen Carlson will flip this seat red, which is great news for Republicans right now. Out of the Nebraska Senate race, Deb Fischer decided to retire this year, and so thus former state treasurer Shane Osborne will go to replace her. And look at this. Despite the unpopularity of Chris Christie, he has gone on to win a Senate race in New Jersey, which is huge news for Republicans in the Senate. And out of North Dakota, Kevin Cramer will go on to win re-election to the Senate. And out of the Rhode Island Senate race, Sheldon Whitehouse's unpopularity with minorities after his revelation about him being in a, quote, racist club, I guess you can call it. Robert Nardolillo will go on to win this seat, going on to the Senate. And out of Wyoming, this was John Barrasso's seat, however, he decided to retire, and Erik Prince will go on to succeed him in the Senate. And out of the Minnesota Senate, or out of the Minnesota Senate race, Amy Klobuchar will go on to win re-election in a landslide. And look at this, a huge pickup for Democrats in the South. Out of the Mississippi Senate race, Omeria Scott will go on to defeat Chris McDaniel and shockingly win this seat. Out of the Pennsylvania Senate race, Bob Casey Jr. will go on to win this Senate seat, winning re-election. Out of the Arizona Senate race, Kirsten Sinema currently leading over Kelly Ward right now, which is good news for her campaign. Out of the Delaware Senate race, it is a dead heat between the two candidates. Lisa Rochester narrowly leading right now. Out of the Florida Senate race, too close to call. Randolph Bracy is currently leading in the state. This could be due to Richard Ojeda's endorsement, as he did endorse Randolph Bracy, and so far it looks like it's helping him in both the Panhandle as well as in with Southern Cubans, which is good news for him, bad news for Rick Scott. Out of the Michigan Senate race, too close to call. Debbie Stabenow is leading over musician Kid Rock or Robert Ritchie. She is currently leading him right now. Out of the Missouri Senate race, it is currently too close to call. Josh Hawley still leading, but with 2 points. Out of New Mexico Senate race, currently too close to call. Martin Heinrich, the current senator, is leading narrowly over Aubrey Dunn Jr. Out of the New York Senate race, currently too close to call. Kirsten Gillibrand is leading over Chris Gibson right now. Out of the Tennessee Senate race, too close to call. Stephen Fincher is leading over John Wolf Jr. Out of the Texas Senate race, currently too close to call. Ted Cruz and right now has a narrow lead over Joaquin Castro. Out of the Wisconsin Senate race, too close to call. Tammy Baldwin leading over David Clark. And here's the current composition of the Senate right now. Republicans have 47 seats to Democrats 36, with 10 seats pending a call. And out of the North Dakota governor race, Lieutenant Governor Brent Sanford will go on to win this seat, succeeding Governor Doug Burgum, who was term limited. And big news out of the state of Missouri, Jason Kander will go on to win the governorship, defeating Mike Kehoe. Mike Parson was term limited, and Jason Kander, who was endorsed by Richard Ojeda, has picked off the state of Missouri, flipping it for Democrats. Out of the North Carolina governor race, too close to call. Josh Stein, who is currently leading right now. Out of the Delaware governor race, currently too close to call. A dead heat right now. Colin Bonini is now leading in this race, which is big news for his campaign. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, too close to call. Governor Ayotte still leading in the state. It is now 10 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of Utah, we can project that Jamie McCourt will win the state of Utah. However, Iowa is currently too close to call, as Richard Ojeda is leading by around 8 points right now. Out of Montana, it is too close to call. Jamie McCourt is leading by around 3 percentage points. Out of Nevada, it is too close to call. Ojeda has around a 3 to 4 point lead at this moment. But we can make some other projections, as Kathy Hochul will go on to win the state of Colorado. Jamie McCourt will win the state of Texas. Kathy Hochul is now going to win the state of Minnesota. This is good news for their campaigns, as we are finally going to get some calls from one of the two major parties. We can now make a projection out of the state of Texas. Ojeda tried, but he couldn't do it. Jamie McCourt will go on to win the state of Texas, and it's 40 electoral votes. But we can give Ojeda this. He will go on to win the state of Wisconsin, doing very well in the white working class counties, as well as the WOW counties. Out of Rhode Island, Richard Ojeda will go on to win the state of Rhode Island. Big pickup for independents. Out of Tennessee, again, sweeping the South. Like I said, he is going to win the state of Tennessee. Out of the state of Arizona, too close to call. Ojeda has now a 3-point lead in the state. Out of Louisiana, too close to call. Ojeda has a narrow lead here. Michigan, too close to call. Ojeda has around a 4-point lead in the state of Michigan. Could he sweep the Rust Belt too? Well, he can't because of Indiana. Out of Nebraska, too close to call. Jamie McCourt leading by around 4 points. Nebraska's 1st district, McCourt leading by around 4 percentage points. Out of Nebraska's 2nd district, Kathy Hochul leading by around 3 percentage points. Out of New Mexico, Kathy Hochul leading still around 1 percentage point, very narrow. Arkansas, Ojeda leading by around 2 percentage points. Out of Connecticut, Ojeda leads by a very narrow, not even a percent. Out of Delaware, it is currently too close to call. Ojeda has a very narrow lead here. Out of Maine's 1st congressional district, Richard Ojeda has a narrow lead in this district. Out of Maryland, too close to call. Ojeda has a narrow lead. Massachusetts is still too close to call. Ojeda has a 2-point lead now. Out of Missouri, it is currently too close to call. Ojeda now has a 2-point lead out of the state of Missouri. Out of Georgia, still too close to call, a battleground here tonight, as Ojeda is now leading by a very narrow margin of 1%. Here's the current electoral map. Richard Ojeda has hit 200 electoral votes, but as you can see, as we get farther and farther west, we are now going to see that McCourt and Hochul will be picking off these states. So maybe, again, like I said earlier, we could be going to a contested convention, but who knows? And Ojeda could shock the world and become the first independent president in this country since John Tyler, and the first independent elected since George Washington, which would be huge for his campaign, or just huge for his presidency for this country. We can now, out of the Utah Senate race, Mitt Romney decided to retire, so Mike Kennedy will succeed him, being elected to the Senate. Out of the Arizona Senate race, Kirsten Sinema will go on to win re-election, defeating Kelly Ward. Out of Delaware Senate race, too close to call, and look at this, Ken Simpler is currently leading over Lisa Rochester right now, which is terrible news for Democrats right now. She has not excited her base, and Randolph Bracey is leading Rick Scott in the Florida Senate race. This is huge news for Democrats. Now the Michigan Senate race, too close to call, Debbie Stabenow currently still leading over Robert Ritchie. At the Missouri Senate race, too close to call, Scott Sifton's almost there as Josh Hawley is narrowly leading him. Nobody saw this race being close at all. Out of the Montana Senate race, too close to call, John Tester is trailing his opponent, Troy Downing, right now. This is terrible news for his campaign. And out of the Nevada Senate race, Jackie Rosen's currently leading Danny Tarkanian right now. She has been described as one of the most vulnerable senators right now, vulnerable incumbents this cycle. At New Mexico, too close to call, Aubrey Dunn Jr. is now leading. He is seemingly getting all of the Libertarian support, as the Libertarian candidate dropped out and endorsed Dunn early in September, and the Libertarian vote is much higher than many have expected. At a New York Senate race, currently too close to call, Kirsten Gillibrand leading over Chris Gibson. Out of the Tennessee Senate race, too close to call, Stephen Fincher leading over John Wolfe Jr. Out of the Texas Senate race, too close to call, look at this, Joaquin Castro is now leading over Ted Cruz. We knew that Ted Cruz was a very polarized figure, but we didn't know he was this hated. Out of the Wisconsin Senate race, too close to call, Tammy Baldwin leading over David Clark still. Here's the current composition of the Senate. Republicans need 3 seats in order to gain a majority, once again for the first time since 2020, and they have 48 seats right now. Democrats have 37, with 11 seats still left to be called. Out of the Utah governor race, Spencer Cox will go on to win re-election, as the North Carolina governor race, still too close to call, as Mark Robinson is still leading. Out of the Delaware governor race, Colin Bonini expands his lead to 1% right now, as they still a very narrow race. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, Kelly Ayotte still leading, the incumbent governor. Now the Montana governor race, Greg Gianforte, the incumbent governor, is currently leading over Casey Schreiner right now. It is now 11 p.m. and the following states have poll closings. Out of Idaho, Jamie McCourt will go on to win this race. California, Kathy Hochul will go on to win California, Hawaii, Oregon, and Washington. Ojeda did not campaign in any of these states, well, with the exception of Idaho, but it's by the vote numbers we have so far, Ojeda is doing even worse. He's underperforming his polling totals, which is not good, but again, he's doing so well everywhere else. We can also project that Richard Ojeda will go on to win the state of Iowa, which again, white working class support there. Jamie McCourt will go on to win the state of Montana, a state that Ojeda contested in, however, failed to win. Here's a shocker. Ojeda was in third in polling, only polling at 13%. He's now winning the state of Nevada. This is huge news to his campaign, as well as the state of Arizona. He is doing exceptionally well in every single state. Again, a low Republican Democrat turnout can do wonders, I guess. Out of Louisiana, Richard Ojeda is also the project winner, continuing his sweep of the South. Out of Michigan, Ojeda will go on to win this state. Out of Nebraska, Jamie McCourt will hold on to this state for Republicans, as well as the 1st congressional district. Nebraska's 2nd district, Kathy Hochul will go on to win this congressional district, as well as the state of New Mexico, as we can now give the state of Arkansas to Richard Ojeda, as well as the state of Missouri. This huge southern white working class support is helping him in the South and Rust Belt. And out of Connecticut, too close to call, Ojeda narrowly leading here. Delaware, too close to call, Ojeda with a narrow lead. Maine's 1st congressional district, too close to call, Ojeda with a narrow lead. Out of Maryland, it is too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead right now. Massachusetts, too close to call, Ojeda has a narrow lead. Out of Georgia, it is too close to call. Ojeda has a narrow lead. Here's the current electoral map. Look at this. I might have to reassess everything because Ojeda is only 8 electoral votes away from winning the election, and he only needs to win the state of Georgia in order to get there. So I think Ojeda might become the first independent president in centuries. We can now make a projection out of the Montana Senate race. Troy Downing will flip the seat for Republicans, which is a net gain for them. We can also make a huge projections for Republicans in New Mexico Senate race. Aubrey Dunn Jr. will win this seat, which is a gain for the Republican Party. Out of the California Senate race, Dianne Feinstein decided to retire, and Kevin De Leon will go on to become the second Latino elected to the Senate, going on to the Senate in January. We can also project that Michigan Senate race, Debbie Stabenow will be reelected. Wisconsin Senate race, Tammy Baldwin will go on to get reelected. However, the Delaware Senate race, too close to call, Ken Simpler still leading narrowly. Out of the Florida Senate race, too close to call, a dead heat between the two candidates, Randolph Bracey still leading. Out of the Hawaii Senate race, currently too close to call, Tulsi Gabbard, who is hated by the Democrats, is currently leading. However, she does have Richard Ojeda's endorsement. Out of Mississippi, there's currently too close. Out of Missouri, too close to call. A dead heat between the two candidates. Josh Hawley just narrowly leading. The Democrats have been saying that his vote to overturn the election was going to cost him, and it looks like it is, which is terrible news. Of course, Ojeda did endorse the Libertarian, which has right now 6% of the vote, which could be where some of these votes are going from Josh Hawley to the Libertarian candidate, Austin Peterson. Out of the Nevada Senate race, currently too close to call, Danny Tarkanian now has a lead, which would be huge if he could win, which would be another flip for Republicans. Out of the New York Senate race, look at this. Republicans are making huge gains in the Northeast, while Democrats are making huge gains in the South. This could be because of this huge third-party surge. I don't know. But Chris Gibson is currently leading in the state of New York. Out of Tennessee, too close to call, Stephen Fincher leading right now in the Senate race. Out of Texas, too close to call, a dead heat between the two candidates. Castro having a narrow lead. Out of Washington Senate race, Joey Gibson leading over Mariah Cantwell. I can't believe this. Richard Ojeda did endorse Joey Gibson, which was a shock to many, but he is currently doing very well in the state of Washington. Here is the current party makeup right now. Republicans will not net a loss this election cycle. This confirms that they have 50 seats, the same they did 2 years ago when they flipped the states of New Hampshire as well as Georgia, when Democrats went back and flipped to Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, but it's still 50-50. And Democrats currently have 40 seats. They need to get 10 seats. Excuse me. They need to net 10 seats if they want to win this race. Out of the Montana governor race, currently too close to call, Casey Schreiner will go on. Excuse me, I just completely fucked that up. Montana governor race, Casey Schreiner shocks the world as he will go on to win this governor race. I don't know what I was thinking, but this is huge for Democrats. Greg Gianforte, of course, this was expected to be a close election. Schreiner had good fundraising numbers, but it looks like that all turns out into a victory in Montana for him. North Carolina's governor race, too close to call, Mark Robinson once again leading in the state. Out of Delaware, too close to call, Colin Bonini is currently leading right now still, only expanding on his victory. Out of the New Hampshire governor race, too close to call, Kelly Ayotte's lead dwindling very slowly. Out of the Washington governor race, too close to call, Doe Constantine is leading Tim Eyman right now, which both of these guys in fundraising is neck and neck. It is now 1 a.m. We now have poll closings out of the state of Alaska. Is currently too close to call as Ojeda has a narrow lead in the state of Alaska. Very heavy libertarian state, which may help Ojeda, carry him over in the race. It's now 1:22. We can make a projection out of the state of Alaska. 22 minutes after poll closings, we can now make that projection that Richard Ojeda will go on to win the state of Alaska, and will go on to win it by around 7 to 8 percentage points, which is huge for an independent. It is now 1:45 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Washington Senate race. Joey Gibson will go on to win this seat for the Republican Party, which does mean that the Republican Party will go on to retake the Senate in this election cycle. A gain for the Republican Party, as Mitch McConnell will be expected to go back as the Senate Majority Leader. We also have a call the Washington governor race, as Tim Eyman pretty much ran even with Gibson, as he will go on to flip the Washington governorship red keeping or flipping it red, as this is a gain for Republicans. It is now 2:03 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the state of Georgia, which is a huge blow to Kathy Hochul, as Richard Ojeda will sweep the South, winning the state of Georgia. And we can now make the shocking projection that Richard Ojeda, an independent, will be elected the 47th president of the United States of America. This is huge news for him in just every American ever, because we haven't elected an independent since 1792, when George Washington was re-elected unanimously by the Electoral College for a second term. And again, and that wasn't the last time we had an independent president, but John Tyler, the 10th president, switched parties from Whig to independent, but he was never elected to the presidency. And Ojeda will go on to make history here tonight. Here is the current electoral map. Like I said, he only needed to win the state of Georgia. I didn't think, well, technically he won Alaska, then Georgia, but as you can see here, the current, excuse me, the current map right now shows Richard Ojeda with 281 electoral votes, Kathy Hochul with 135 electoral votes, and Jamie McCourt with 90 electoral votes. It is now 2:05 a.m. We can now make a projection out of Hawaii, which is huge. Over the night, we've been seeing that Tulsi Gabbard's numbers have been dwindling, and it seems like Duke Aiona will be going on to win 20% of Democrat support, which most of that is anti-Tulsi sentiment. And Duke Aiona will go on to flip this Senate seat. Many will call this a fluke, but we just have to see where it goes from here. It is now 2:23 a.m. We can now make a huge projection out of the New Hampshire governor race. Dan Feltz, Kelly Ayotte's lead has been drastically lowering as the night go on, and Dan Feltz is going to narrowly win back the New Hampshire governor seat for Democrats, just narrowly though. It is now 2:36 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Nevada Senate race. Danny Tarkanian will go on to flip this seat for the Republicans, which is what this was a heavy target for Republicans, and Danny Tarkanian has delivered. It is now 2:42 a.m. We can now make a projection out of Connecticut. Richard Ojeda will win the state of Connecticut. It is now 3:06 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the state of Delaware. Richard Ojeda will go on to win the state of Delaware. It's now 3:33 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the North Carolina governor race. Mark Robinson will flip this seat for Republicans, I think becoming the first black governor. I could be wrong. I don't have it on a note whether he is or not, on file, I mean. And he will go on to win the governorship, only serving 4 years as lieutenant governor. It is now 3:44 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Delaware Senate race. Ken Simpler will go on to flip this seat. He is expected to win 18% of Democrat support, which was very little. Republicans actually turned out more than Democrats, by raw numbers, which could explain why he won here, as well as Colin Bonini winning in the governor race in Delaware, which is huge news. It is now 3:56 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Tennessee Senate race. Huge shock here tonight, as Democrats have made huge gains in the South tonight, which is huge. John Wolfe Jr., formerly a perennial candidate, will go on to win the Senate seat, defeating Stephen Fincher, which many say is a winnable race. It is now 4:02 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Texas Senate race, as Joaquin Castro will go on to flip this seat for the Democrats, which is huge news, as the Democrats have been salivating the changing demographics of Texas for years now, and it has finally paid off, as Joaquin Castro will go on as the third Latino senator elected to the Senate. It is now 4:12 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the state of Maryland, as Richard Ojeda will go on to win this state, flipping it for independence. It's now 4:23 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the state of Massachusetts, as Richard Ojeda will flip the seat for independence. It's now 4:35 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the Massachusetts Senate race. This was Elizabeth Warren's seat, then she decided to retire. John Kingston III has done the impossible. He has flipped this seat. However, he ran a more liberal than Republican usually is agenda, and it seemed to have helped him out, as he won around 10% of the Democrat vote here tonight. It is now 7:02 a.m. We can now make a projection out of the state of Florida. Randolph Bracy will shock the world, defeating Rick Scott, being elected to the Senate, the first black senator elected from Florida. It's now 10:12 a.m. The kids are in school right now, but we can now make a projection out of the Missouri Senate race. Scott Sifton will also shock the world, as he will win this Senate race. mostly because Austin Peterson did grab between 12% of the popular vote and has actually did win his home county tonight. It's now 11:08 a.m. We can now make a projection that out of the New York Senate race, Chris Gibson will narrowly win this Senate race. Of course, there are going to be recounts in all of these states, presumably. And here is the final electoral map. Richard Ojeda has 313 electoral votes, which is huge for this country. And Kathy Hochul has 135 electoral votes, and Jamie McCourt has 90 electoral votes. Here's the final Senate map here tonight. Republicans won 56 seats to Democrats 44 seats. A very cursed map, if you ask me. Here's the current governor map right now. Republicans have kept their majority, winning 28 seats to Democrats 22. And we can also make the projection that the majority will go to the House. They lost seats, a net loss of, I think, 28 seats, as they now have 239 seats compared to Democrats 197. Breaking news, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Speaker Kevin McCarthy have both said that they are, quote, open to working with President-elect Ojeda. If so, this would be huge, as Richard Ojeda is socially conservative, fiscally progressive, which maybe he would be able to get some of his more progressive policies out there. We would just have to wait and find out. But this is huge news for the Ojeda administration. President-elect Ojeda has named the UK ambassador under the Biden administration, Jane Hartley, to lead the State Department. She has been named his pick for Secretary of State, the former UK ambassador. This is just less than 24 hours after he made that huge announcement for his Secretary of State. The incumbent Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, has been named to serve as Richard Ojeda's UN ambassador. Ojeda has been talking with... There have been reports that Ojeda has been talking with several members of the Biden administration to stay for his administration, and it seems like Tony Blinken will kind of get a demotion, it seems like, as he will go from Secretary of State to UN ambassador. Richard Ojeda has confirmed that University President Farnham Jahanian will serve as his science director. He has a degree in computer science, which is a good selection, many have said, and he is an independent. He has no party affiliation, which is the first of that kind to be chosen. I would say. Happy birthday to me! But other than that, Richard Ojeda has named former New York Congressman who retired in 2022 to run for governor of New York unsuccessfully, Lee Zeldin. He will go on to be he will be his Secretary of Treasury. So far, he has picked one Democrat, one Republican, as well as one unaffiliated politician or one third party, which breaks kind of even with his campaign promise to have his administration be diverse with political parties, I guess you could say. Richard Ojeda has named General James McConville, the former Army Chief of Staff, and he will go on to become the next Secretary of Defense, someone else who is unaffiliated with a political party. James McConville has been noted as a very solid pick by Ojeda to become the Defense Secretary. President-elect Ojeda has named former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell for Attorney General. Republicans praise this selection, specifically the America First Republicans, while the progressives are kind of not easy with this one. Richard Ojeda has made a very controversial announcement today, as he has grabbed the former Treasury Secretary from the Trump administration, Steven Mnuchin, and he will fill the Secretary of the Interior post, which is very controversial, as many Democrats have claimed that he has no experience to run the Interior Department. It'll be interesting to see if he gets past the confirmation battle. President-elect Ojeda has made an announcement today. Former Missouri Lieutenant Governor Joe Maxwell will be his Secretary of Agriculture, which many have praised as a good pick, especially those from the middle. Richard Ojeda has made an announcement today as New York Congressman Gregory Meeks, who is more so on the progressive side of the Democrat Party, will lead the Commerce Department. Republicans have said that they will not accept this nomination. However, there have been a couple Republicans, such as Chris Sununu, Susan Collins, who have said that they are open to hearing the guy out. Richard Ojeda has gone on and named Pennsylvania Congresswoman Susan Wild as his labor secretary. Moderate Republicans and all Democrats of Kaine are saying that she will be an excellent labor secretary. However, he is continuing to dwindle the Democrat House numbers. Richard Ojeda names Alex Azar to once again lead the health department. He says that Alex Azar did a fantastic job with the health department, considering Donald Trump slashed it as much as he did. And with an increased budget that Richard Ojeda plans to make, he hopes that Alex Azar will do even better. We do have several announcements right now, as Richard Ojeda has named several positions in his cabinet, all coming from the Biden administration. Secretary Marcia Fudge will remain as the Housing and Urban Development Secretary. Secretary Pete Buttigieg will remain as the Transportation Secretary. And Secretary Miguel Cardona will remain as Education Secretary. Chairwoman Rouse will remain as the Economic Chair in his cabinet. And Admin Guzman will remain as the Small Business Administrator in his administration. Richard Ojeda has made an announcement today, as he, once again, very controversial. He names former Defense Secretary Mark Esper, who served in the Trump administration for a little under 2 years, as Energy Secretary. Many are questioning why he made this specific pick, and he said that Mark Esper did an excellent job running the Defense Department and wants to give him one more chance, considering Trump screwed him. We now have a name for the Secretary of Veterans Affairs. Richard Ojeda has named the former Undersecretary of State, one of them, for International Affairs, Andrea Thompson, who is a veteran. She will lead the Veterans Affairs Department, which Republicans and Democrats alike has praised this selection. Richard Ojeda has named Pennsylvania Governor Lou Barletta as Secretary of Homeland Security. The America First base of the Republican Party love this choice. Again, progressives, not so easy on it. Richard Ojeda has named Crystal Ball, who was the only person to endorse him in the 2020 election when he ran as a Democrat, and the first person to endorse him this election cycle, the first person to endorse him for president, and she will be the next White House Chief of Staff, I think the first female to hold that position. Richard Ojeda has named the former acting Attorney General under the Trump administration, Jeffrey Rosen, to lead the Environmental Protection Agency. Again, similar to other former Trump administration picks, a bunch of Democrats have said they will reject this, and will reject this immediately. If they will reject it as much as they can, but very controversial pick Jeffrey Rosen is. Richard Ojeda has named the former currency controller, Joseph Otting, will now be the budget director, the currency controller under the Trump administration, Joseph Otting, many of which have said is a good choice for the budget director. Richard Ojeda has gone on to name the incumbent Iraq ambassador, Matthew Tuller, to become the intelligence director, many of which question his experience to run said department, but Tuller has said just give him a chance and he'll show you what he knows. And the final cabinet position to be named under the Ojeda administration, former Massachusetts State Congressman Evandro Carvalho has been announced to be Richard Ojeda's trade representative, the first black trade rep ever, if I'm not lying to myself. Thank you guys so much for watching. Sorry for the long video today, but I hope you guys enjoy the long videos. Don't forget to go follow my Twitter @ChaoticPolitics. This is the Chaotic One saying peace.